Well, good afternoon team, fancy seeing you here. So we are currently on our way to what was OPEX Gatwick, big news, is now Route 1 Fitness, which is the name of the gym actually from about 8 years ago when I first joined. So there's a story there, and no doubt we will speak to my friend Glenn, the owner, as to why he's left the brand. That'll be an interesting little story. But we're basically going to go there, quick warm up today, and then what I want to do is, I believe there is a massive misunderstanding as to what power training is and what power training requires. And two groups of people, two kind of collectives that train regularly and need to look after their performance that I believe don't necessarily do that properly, are people prepping for the military. Power is incredibly important and they don't really execute that effectively, I believe. And CrossFitters as well, although kind of Olympic lifting is obviously such a huge thing in the CrossFit world. I believe there are a couple of other specific kind of power exercises that they can do which will be unbelievably beneficial for them, and also we'll probably do a little bit of kind of a mild deep dive into a little bit of an explanation as to why that stuff would work and what exactly power training is. And hopefully if they understand that, then they'll be able to kind of select exercises that will help them and then work out from there how often they need to be doing that. So we're on our way to Route 1 Fitness, formerly known as OPEX Gatwick now. Quick warm up and then we will be getting cracking. So we are here. I am about to do, I've done a little bit of a warm up, done some stuff with the foam roller, done some stuff with the ball. I'm going to do a little bit more kind of like movement prep stuff now. I kind of do this generally in my training anyway, and especially when I'm doing power work, because obviously the contraction's so quick, you're moving both fast and you're moving heavy loads. So I think it's kind of important to make sure that the body is like properly prepped and properly primed. And a lot of the time with like movement prep stuff, I'm like the next guy, and I'm like, fucking hell, this just seems like an absolute like ball ache nightmare to have to kind of invest the time to do it. With like maximal power work, like I don't really feel like that, because I think I remember how taxing it can be and I don't want to get injured. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some stuff on my adductors, something called a Copenhagen plank that good buddy and three-time Olympian Ben Simons taught me a couple of weeks ago. And especially when most of the stuff that you do is linear movement, like my stuff is, even my sprint drills, is all linear. It's really, really good to make sure that you're doing stuff kind of inside and outside of hips. So I'm going to do a Copenhagen plank now. I'm going to do a couple of little hip flexor stretches. I'm going to do some stuff around my shoulder and shoulder girdle, just to make sure that they're nice and open, and then we'll get on with the heavy lifting. Right guys, power done right. We are warm, we are mobilized, we've done some movement prep and a little bit of a superset now. We're gonna do some trap bar deads, but the important thing here, the main kind of distinction from this to how you might be doing it normally is the tempo. So we have a tempo here of 3-2-x-0. So this is like kind of like my secret trick for power training. There's kind of a couple of things really. One of them is controlling the eccentric, and especially again, for either CrossFitters or for people prepping for the military, this is key to just build the kind of the stability at range and build the stability around the joint. So 3 seconds on the way down, 2-second pause. So basically, again, it's trap bar deadlift. It should be lifted from a dead start. I'm not a massive fan of touch and go deadlifts or trap bar anyway. The whole purpose is that you overcome that inertia from like a static position. So 3 seconds down, 2 seconds on a pause, and then X is basically as quick as you can on the way up. Don't just bring the hips through, really, really, really explode, go into a little bit of a shrug, a little bit of a calf raise if you can, or if you need to, but mainly it's what's called the triple extensions. You're extending at the hips, the knee and the ankle. So super, super, super explosive. And we're gonna superset it because of a little known principle called PAP. This is post-activation potentiation. I've spoken a little bit about this in previous videos. This basically means that if I perform a movement under heavy load for the next kind of 2 minutes-ish, 2 to 3 minutes-ish, I'm able to perform the same movement super quick with loads and loads and loads of power output. So as an example, if I did like a 3 rep max deadlift, rested for 2 minutes, then did a broad jump, my broad jump is going to be on point. So what we're going to do, we're going to do the trap bar, and then I'm going to do some nice reactive tuck jumps for 5. We're going to do 3 rounds of this. Let's see how we get on. So set number 1 done. That felt quite good actually. It's always good kind of testing the waters with the first one. Doing it barefooted, trying to develop a little bit of kind of foot and ankle stability and see how my feet feel in contact with the ground. But the weight felt fine. Eccentrically going down slow on a trap bar does definitely feel weird, and it kind of does burn out a little bit. So you do start to feel that it kind of starts to empty the tank. So it starts to fill the legs with lactic a little bit. But again, that's kind of the point. So about 60 more seconds, then we'll go again. We're going to do 3 total sets of this. And then one thing I didn't say over there is we're basically going to go into a little bit of a burner set. So we'll do the 3 kind of main working sets of the working weight with 6 for the trap bar and then 5 for the tuck jumps. And then we'll take a little bit of weight off and we'll do like a set of 20. So we still get a little bit of muscular endurance and a little bit of kind of like a hypertrophic pump all in one without having to change the exercises. We literally strip the bar a little bit. It's about another 45 seconds, then let's go. Set 2 done. Again, feels nice. It's mad how powerful you feel on jumps and stuff when you like really prime your body by lifting a little bit of load beforehand. So weight wise for me, that is, the first set was a little bit lighter, kind of undershot that. The second one I put some 10s on each side, and that is now about 170. And 170 on a trap bar is about right for power stuff. I mean, for maximum strength stuff, obviously I'd be looking to shift kind of way over 200, but 170 for power work is about right. In terms of how heavy should I be lifting if I'm doing power work compared to just like my maximum, very good question. I would say go down to around about 80%. So drop the weight, drop the total load by 20%, and then that will allow you to kind of execute it and move a little and just move faster. But again, making sure that you don't want to kind of throw out the joints at the top, but making sure you're still accelerating all the way up to the top is just 100% kind of the best way to do it. That's why hips are coming through quick, a little bit of a shrug, a little bit of a calf raise to make sure that we're getting that full extension. And we're accelerating through the extension. A couple of big deep breaths, step out, no more than 30 seconds, which is enough to recover, I think, because this is kind of sub-maximal, straight into tuck jumps. It's feeling good. 1 more set left. Three sets done and in the bag. They felt good actually. I still haven't done that much power stuff or any kind of really heavy stuff for the last kind of, I don't know, it's been 2.5 weeks now since I did the course at Mike's Gym Marbella, and my grip's better, my forearms are better, but I've been a little bitch and I haven't been training very hard. But I've done the trap bar deadlifts now, the power ones. As I said earlier, I'm gonna go down just to kind of get a little bit of like muscular endurance work, a little bit of lactic tolerance, a little bit of a pump as well. And I really like doing things in this way. I think one of the ways, again, I've said in kind of previous videos, one of my main objectives now is to get all of the training benefits that I can. But A, make sure it's fun, and B, make sure it's fairly expedient, because I don't have 2 hours a day to mess around with this in the way that I did when I was like 24. Now that I'm 34, I've got shit to do. And to be fair, I don't really want to be spending that amount of time. So one of the best ways I think you can get kind of a strength or power benefit and a hypertrophic muscular endurance lactic tolerance benefit is by basically picking a certain exercise, especially when it's compound lift, like trap bar deadlifts is, doing the strength work ditching some of the weight, so I've taken 40 kilos off this. This is around about 130 now. So effectively I'm just gonna, I'll do 20 reps now with a really, really, really light touch and go. I don't want to reset for 20. I'd rather kind of keep my core brace for a number like that, and it's a little bit lighter so I can handle it, but super kind of light touch. It's just a good way to get some blood pumping. Let's go. Oh, that is insane how kind of okay that feels at the time, but because your core's braced and your diaphragm's pulling down, trying to get some oxygen in, but everything is kind of braced and nice and firm during the set. You drop the bar, you relax, and the lungs are right, this is my window. Diaphragm's gonna start pulling down properly. I need some fucking oxygen. So that was a bit of a lovely little shock to the system, but it's nice. Again, coming from sprinting, super elastic in the lower body, which means overall my lactic tolerance for lower body stuff is very poor. And people always be like, yeah, but you used to do bobsleigh. Look, I've pushed prowlers, loads of lactic in your legs. I was like, yeah, when you do it for more than 6 seconds, which is all I did. So that's done now. Gonna redo or rewrite right on the board stage 2 of this power program. Let's see, what does this do for us? Section 2 of power done right for CrossFitters and for people prepping for the military, especially the Royal Marines, as that is my background. So we have low box, important bit here, low box step ups with a knee drive. I'll kind of get more onto that, into the specifics of why we would do that in a second, but basically making sure that we're not working at this kind of super acute range. It's less range at the knee, less range at the hip. But one of the things I want for this is basically I'm going to introduce a bit of eccentric load with the step up. So effectively what I'm not going to do is have my foot there and then speed through. I'm actually going to hover my foot just above the ground, drive from there. So basically you have all that eccentric load going through the working leg. It will start off about 2 inches above the box and then drive down from there. So we're going to do 5 each side and then banded, it's a bit of a bloody algebra equation, banded half kneeling single arm overhead. So basically contralateral, so whichever leg is forward, the other arm will be working. We'll see this in a second. Effectively, and it's a single arm dumbbell press. Kind of goes into a little bit of an Arnold because I'm a big fan of bringing the dumbbell down and kind of bringing it back just for shoulder health. So palm will be facing forwards when the arm's extended at the top, and as it comes down, the palm will either face kind of across me or very slightly back towards me. So it's a lot better for your shoulder to kind of come back into that position. 6 each side for that, but the difference is we're basically going to wrap a band around the floor underneath me and wrap a band around the dumbbell. The last time I did this was about 4 years ago, and I can't remember how to tie the band. So let's see how we got on, but I feel very confident that we shall nail it. So these two, and effectively what we're going to do 3 rounds, 3 or 4 sets, but we're going to try to keep the rest fairly minimal. But with this one, especially the shoulders, the key is, again, I don't want it too dynamic. This is true power, so overcoming that inertia is super important. So I'll bring it down, I'll pause, I'll rebreathe, and then I'll snap up. So quick on the way up, and then about 2 to 3 seconds down. So the tempo for this, again, about 3-2x0 is an amazing kind of standardized tempo when we want to do true power work. That's what we're going to do. Well, that's what we just did with the trap bar. That's what we're going to do with this. Let's go. First set done. That wasn't too bad actually. I'm surprised actually. I'm right-footed, but how much stronger my left leg feels on the step-ups. It's quite common with footballers that if they're right-footed, their left leg will be stronger with the eccentric load because that's the bring your right foot back ready to kick the ball. It's the left leg that's obviously taking all the force and bracing. It's a massive amount of eccentric load, massive amount of stability kind of being developed on that side. And then the shoulders weren't too bad, at least I remembered how to do the band. But yeah, that wasn't too bad. Again, because I'm quite naturally dynamic. So pauses for me are something that overall are really hard to do, but it's because of that I bitch out of them in my training, and it's because of that I need to make sure that I make deliberate time for them. Because I think there's this thing, if you do power training wrong, if you execute power training wrong, it can develop an imbalance or an asymmetry, or if you've got a little bit of a niggle, it can kind of exacerbate it and make it worse. But that's why I'm like 3-2-X-0. It's like a flipping magic, seriously guys, it's a magic weapon for building stability on the way down, developing your breath and your breathing technique to rebreathe during that 2 seconds at the bottom. Big deep breath, brace in the belly, and then snap up. You develop power, you develop a little bit of muscular endurance because the rep takes a little bit longer than normal because you're not just rushing and trying to get through it. And it develops some stability and some control with a controlled 3-second eccentric, lowering phase and everything. Magic weapon, I'm telling you. It's me waffled enough, on to set 2, let's go. And on to section 3, finishing off today's little power workout. So we're going to do some hand release pull-ups. And the reason for this, especially, well, CrossFit and military have a lot in common. There's a lot of kind of synonymous methodologies in the way they train, and one of them being rope climbs. And one of the things that I think kind of biceps generally and pull levers have to get used to is a little bit of eccentric load, where basically we catch, there's a lot of load going through a slightly bent arm. And one of the things I'm going to do with a hand release pull-up, I'm going to do it underhand. It's basically up, and it's really, really easy to cheat on this, which is why kind of being as strict as possible, kind of with your integrity of the way that you execute it, is super key. It's basically pulling up a little bit, kind of like an archer pull-up, where you pull out to one side, but you're not going to straighten the other arm, pulling up to kind of one hand, and the other hand literally just releases from the bar for a fraction of a second. So what you've got to do, the arm that's working, you've just got to slowly kind of transition as much of the weight as possible, because so few people can actually do one arm pull-ups. Transition as much of the weight as possible onto the working arm, and then we're going to alternate. So we're not going to do 4 on one side and then the other. It's right, left, and we're going to do 4 each side total. And then on the GHD, we're going to do some counter rotation. So basically almost like halfway down into a GHD sit-up, make sure your torso is nice and long. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold a little bit of weight in towards my chest, and then basically extend it. And obviously the further the weight gets away from the center line of my body, the more my torso is wanting to turn. But the purpose of your core muscles really aren't often to generate or create movement, they're to prevent movement. So counter movement, counter lateral flexion, counter rotation, those are the things with core work that will actually build up a strong torso. You basically, the spine is like super movable. The goal of core training really is to immobilize it by keeping it kind of locked in and kind of as strong, and as kind of like creating that stiffness as much as you can. Keep it clean. So 4 each side for hand release pull-ups. Camerawoman Danny loved that one. Dirty cow, of course she did. And then 5 each side for the counter rotations. Let's get cracking. Fine, I changed my mind a lot. So, have I rubbed it all off? No. 3A and 3B are there. However, introducing section 3C, because we've got a pull movement, a core movement, and I thought I'd do another push, because trap bar is really pull based. I just wanted a little bit more push lever work in there. So we're going to do some crocodile press ups. Crocodile press ups, where basically I did these in literally just outside actually in a video recently. And you keep your spine in line in a press up position, but effectively you've got a slightly kind of like almost like misloaded position with the hands. They're explosive movements because your hands leave the floor, and the feet might leave the floor a little bit as well. And effectively one hand just kind of keeps leapfrogging the other. But the goal is that as one hand is in front of the other, naturally the torso wants to turn. I want to keep the torso nice and neutral. As we fully extend and in the air we switch down, fully extend, and the torso, basically the spine, stays in line the whole time. Because it's like super dynamic, we're not really bothered about controlling eccentric tempo on this because there's so much eccentric load from the kind of the impact. But having eccentric load, obviously we do loads and loads and loads of press ups in CrossFit. You do a hell of a lot of press ups when you're in the military. But developing the ability to kind of handle eccentric load, and especially handle eccentric load when it's slightly off center, doing work specifically so that you can survive catching something off center or falling forward onto something not quite balanced is key. because there's no point being unbelievably strong over 1.5 miles, unbelievably strong in the gym, but you step off a curb and you roll your ankle because you don't have that stability in a 3-dimensional environment. So this is a really, really important drill. I probably won't add anything to this. 3 exercises is enough for me. I'm still a sprinter at heart. Let's get going. And boom, we are done. Quite happy with that actually. Again, much less eccentric kind of tempo on that last little round on section 3, but the eccentric load was a little bit higher. And usually it's kind of one or the other for me. That's why on the step ups, as an example, I'm not stepping down low, because I really give myself the eccentric load with smashing that front foot into the box first. But there we go, guys. If you're a CrossFitter, a functional fitness athlete, however you identify yourself, or if you're prepping for or serving in the military, power work is unbelievably underrated. It is not the same as strength, and it's not the same as speed. It is kind of a unique alchemy of the two. And there we go. There's, from me, who's spent 5 years in the Royal Marines, which is obviously incredibly endurance-based, but also been an international bobsleigh athlete, which is incredibly speed-based. I can tell you that speed and power work is foundationally important across the board, and it is not executed properly, especially in the flipping military. And a couple of tips from me: just make sure you get used to a little bit of eccentric load going through the system. Again, I had the crocodile push-ups for push levers, push movements, the hand release pull-ups for pull, and the step-ups, obviously for lower, for the kind of that component. And the other one is control the eccentric tempo. That's phenomenally important if you can. And that's why I did it on the trap bar deadlifts. And that is why I did it on the banded half kneeling dumbbell press. 3-2-x-0 is a phenomenally good kind of tempo to have. Always try and balance push, pull, and legs, and a little bit of core. So I think they're good tips. Full body stuff. 3-2-x-0 is kind of a really, really, really good standard tempo. Control the eccentric load, or control the eccentric tempo if you can. Eccentric load a little bit, and nice and snappy on the way up. There we go. Now start executing power work properly, and you should be good. And the final thing, actually, the fifth thing, I think we're at 4 before that, so the fifth thing, core work in regards to power, is basically being able to resist movement, resist rotation, and resist lateral flexion. There you go, guys. Hope you did enjoy that. If you have not yet done so, please do subscribe, because if you do not, Danny will be very upset. Won't you, Danny? Incredibly. There we go. Please do aggressively and powerfully smash the like button if you did enjoy the content of this video. And as always, guys, stay strong, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I'll see you soon.